Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us here on the Infinite Prosperity podcast. My name is Louisa and I help high achievers, entrepreneurs and coaches lift the lid on life and business so that they can live at their highest value. Each episode we will bring you our favourite founders, CEOs and guest experts to share with you their insights and strategies to expand your wealth consciousness, your spiritual leadership and aligned business strategies. We know that living in alignment with your soul's mission is what fulfills you, and we are here to show you how to achieve this in an energetically aligned way. If you haven't already, be sure to claim your free abundance activation in the Akashic Records. Go to louisahavers.com/gift to unlock your abundance activation today. And if you'd like my support in having aligned success in life and business, then contact me at www.louisahavers.com and let's explore together if it's an aligned match. Get ready to live at your highest value and to expand into your next level of money as you elevate and receive more. You create more for others. Righty ho, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to our episode this week on the Infinite Prosperity podcast. This week we're talking about how companies can grow profitably in these uncertain times by capitalizing on the changes instead of fighting against them with the incredible Jennifer Peake. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you.
So excited to have you with us and for this conversation. And for those of you that are getting to know Jennifer, Jennifer is the founder and CEO of Peake Advisory Group. Peake Advisory specialise in working with growing companies by providing fractional CFO, financial due diligence and business valuation services. And the firm provides marquee level services without the marquee price tag, enabling smaller companies to achieve profitable cash flow and make better business decisions in alignment with both short-term and long-term business goals. This is music to my ears. A huge welcome, Jennifer.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
So tell me, I always love to find out how people got involved with what they're doing. What made you start your own business? What was your journey?
So corporate America, in a nutshell, right? That's my journey. Graduated from college, went to work in a public accounting firm as an auditor, and then went into corporate America after about 5 years and spent a good 16 years with a very, very large company, Fortune 50. And honestly, I think there's a couple of different things, which I don't think is very uncommon for folks, right? It's a combination of personal, where you are in your personal life, as well as where you see yourself in your professional journey. And for me, on the professional side, I really kind of felt like I had done what I came to do, and it was time to do something different. And that happened to coincide very, very nicely with the ages of my children and some things that were going on with them and the flexibility we needed for where they were, right? They were getting to be that middle school age where they can't be without supervision, but the traditional, if you will, mechanisms that we had relied on were no longer available, right? They just got too big, too old, all of those kinds of things. So it was really a combination of those elements that brought me to starting my own company. Now, the services that we offer inside Peake Advisory Group were really derived from all that experience and what I like to do the most. So what I really had enjoyed doing in my corporate life was the mergers and the acquisitions and the projects and the helping companies identify where opportunities were and solving problems, right? Like fitting the puzzle pieces together. I wasn't so much in love with the day-to-day routine stuff. So that's really how we offer our services and what we focus on and who we help. And we've honed that over the years, of course, as most people do when they're in business for themselves. So really niche down into very, very specific things that we help companies with. And it's really a lot of fun. So that's how I got here.
You just lit up as you were talking about it. You can tell that, it gives you a lot of joy. And you must have so many people reaching out to you right now, particularly and having these kinds of conversations, because there's so much uncertainty going on. We just need to open a newspaper or turn on the TV and they're talking about doom and gloom, or how we can budgets being cut and all the things. So I'd love to hear your reflections on how can business owners not just survive. We don't want to survive, we want to thrive, right, when we've got just this rapidly changing business environments going on all around us.
Yeah. And as we're recording this week couldn't be any of a better indication of that. And in the US, we've had some banking issues, and I think that just brings it to the forefront for everybody. And I think you and I would both agree that pace of change isn't going to slow down.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, well, and I have had these conversations with my clients in the past week even, right? And one of the things that I would say is that really sound prosperity planning, financial planning, how you address things in your business, those good decisions are good decisions regardless of where we are on the roller coaster. And I think the biggest challenge, I hate to call it a mistake but I think the biggest challenge for business owners when all of the noise is happening and the doom and gloom is rolling out of every possible place you turn and look or listen to, is that they think they need to do something dramatically different, right? Like the drama in the media creates this drama in their minds, which wants to translate itself into drama in their business. And that's just really unnecessary. It's like what you were doing last week, unless you have money at these banks, right? But what you were doing last week and the way that you were making decisions is still valid this week. Probably at least 90% valid. And the biggest mistake really that business owners can make is to draw back and retrench and to think they need to go a different direction. And that applies to all kinds of things. Now, that doesn't mean that maybe you don't need to have a review with the level of conservatism. Of course you do. But you may need to do that if a customer cancels an order or a project gets delayed, or right, there's all of those normal things that happen in business that act the very same way as what's going on now. So that's really like, don't panic. That's the headline. Don't panic. And I think, sort of get out of the bubble, like talk to somebody that has a different perspective, perhaps, in terms of and people do this all the times in their personal lives, and they can apply those same skill sets to doing that in their business life. Like if you got a bestie that you're like, holy crap, did you see what happened on whatever? You should have some business advisors or business besties or whatever you want to call them that can provide that same mirror or sounding board for you that you would have if you were experiencing something in a different part of your life.
Oh, that's so true. So true. I love how you said get out of the bubble. Get out of your head. Because you can just go down a rabbit hole, can't you, of thinking it's all going in the wrong direction, and what you've been doing isn't going to stand you in test of time. But I think you're absolutely right with if you're doing the right things, it's going to provide that solid foundation for your business to grow and to be able to weather some of this noise that can happen around us. Is so key, isn't it? What because I know you work with a lot of different business owners, and I'm sure you must see that there are key skill sets that most successful business owners have that you work with. What are their key skill sets for our listeners, so that they can tick them off or go, oh, I need to develop
here's
one.
my checklist. So I think there's a couple of them, and this would be regardless of like what the business owner is bringing into their position as a CEO, as an owner, as a founder. and also really regardless of industry or size. And the couple of key ones are really taking the approach that nothing is so dramatic that it can't be fixed. I mean, of course there are exceptions, but in general, nothing is so urgent and so frantic and so dramatic that it can't be fixed. And if you hold that belief, it will put you in a space where you start to problem solve instead of continuing down the rabbit hole. Right? Because the opposite of what I just described is what I call catastrophizing, right? Which is like, oh, but then this, then this, then this. And I'm like, well, okay, what happened? We were all the way, we were just back here. And like now the world's ending, or, you know, the business life or whatever it is, right? So really not catastrophizing and coming from a place of problem solving. To the extent that you have a lot of employees or you have an executive team, it's also important that they come from that same mindset, right? Like you want to surround yourself with people who are focused on solution-oriented type of decisions versus surrounding yourself with people who want to bring you all of their problems in their job and have you be the solution provider for everybody.
Oh,
right?
That's exhausting.
That's not only a terrible business setup, it's also a recipe for burnout and bad decisions and knee-jerk reactions, and like you just simply can't solve everything for everybody at one time. And so you really want an empowered team from that perspective. So I would say that's the biggest thing, is that, you know, business owners don't catastrophize. If you find yourself catastrophizing, then we'll go back to what we said earlier, which is, oh my gosh, find a sounding board, find somebody you can talk to, like get a little bit of perspective. And so I think that's an important component. The other thing that most of them do is that they take in information from what's happening in their industry, what's happening in the world, what's happening down the street, depending upon if they're local or worldwide or whatever it is. But they are very discerning about the information that they're taking in. And right, so I think of it like a colander or a strainer or cheesecloth or whatever, right? Like versus a fire hose. And creating that environment where you have the discernment built in instead of having to make it every single time you get a piece of information is really important, right? So find those reliable sources of information. Find those, whether it's some sort of industry group, whether it's a financial source of information, you know, whatever helps you put the pieces together. Because you certainly don't want to live in a vacuum, but you also don't want to be blasted with a fire hose every time you turn around.
No, it's so true. I love that piece about discernment and being able to recognize that, because otherwise it just creates that energy of being in that reactive phase all the time, and that is absolutely, as you were saying, that's absolutely exhausting, and we're not going to make the best decisions if we're in that energetic space. Being able to put the filter of discernment on is key. I think there's so much out there in terms of whatever industry that, you know, we're operating in, where you can have these myths about what's going on and these misconceptions about what people do. I'd love to know, what are the common misconceptions that business owners might have that you see about hiring a fractional CFO?
So I would say first and foremost, it's we're not really big enough. We don't really need that level of service. And, you know, that's really where the fractional CFO offer service opportunities, development of the industry came from. And it's, yeah, you probably don't day in and day out. But there are times when you really do need that level of expertise. And it could be when you're deciding to grow your business, right? Whether you're launching a new product or service, whether you want to add a whole new line of business, whether you had a competitor go out of business or start up a business, right? Really understanding what that looks like. If you are in a company that is very, I'll say, equipment intensive, so where you have to invest a lot in hard assets, then, you know, having somebody who can run a business case for you so that you understand what that payback really looks like and putting some realistic expectations on it. So, you know, God love the entrepreneurs because they are the most optimistic people in the world. And like, we're going to buy this piece of equipment and manna is going to fall down from the heavens.
Yeah.
That would be lovely. It usually doesn't work like that. Right. Or we're going to launch a new line of business, or we had been serving smaller businesses. Now we want to move into really large companies, or we had been working with, I'll say, retail customers, and now we want to work with wholesale customers, right? Like, those are very different elements that have to be considered. And it's not just taking one thing and saying, well, now I'm going to trade the customer out and it's going to act the same way. It doesn't. And I think a lot of times what surprises people, particularly if you're moving from smaller to bigger, is that there is a definitive cash drag on growing. That's true regardless. But if you move from smaller customers who are paying you fast, right? Like when they walk into your store, to wholesale accounts where you have to send them a lot of inventory and they have very defined terms on which they're going to pay you, right? Your cash cycle, meaning from when you bought the inventory to when they're going to pay you, is dramatically, exponentially longer than what it is and what you've been doing, right? So a fractional CFO can help you identify what those elements are and then help you quantify them, right? Because one of the things that like fractional CFOs are really good at is making sure that your biggest dream doesn't turn into your worst nightmare.
Yes, no business owner wants that.
No business owner wants that, right? And so like that's, but I think that's where a lot of business owners get stuck, is that they think, well, but I don't have those things all the time. No, you don't. But when you do, you have an opportunity to tap into somebody who doesn't need to be a full-time employee. So you're not overpaying somebody just in case.
Point. Yes. Good point.
So I also think that there's some confusion about what different types of accounting and financial providers can help people with. And it's just like everything else, right? It's not one size fits all. You probably need different people at different times. Like you probably need a bookkeeper or a staff accountant routinely. You probably need a CPA who does your taxes 3 or 4 times a year if you're doing tax planning. And then you probably need a fractional CFO on some basis. Maybe it's periodic, maybe it's maybe it's randomly, like on a project, maybe it's quarterly, something like that. So that you really understand how things are moving and changing in your business. One of the big things that a fractional CFO can help you do is to say, I'm getting all of this, I'll call it anecdotal information, and yet we don't have any money in the bank. Why is that? Our sales are higher than they've ever been. but I struggle to meet payroll at least once a quarter. And a fractional CFO has the skill sets to be able to help you with that analysis and help you devise plans to fix it.
That's huge. That's absolutely huge, because I think that's the thing that can really take people out when there's those cash flow wobbles.
Right.
And if you're trying to grow the business and there's going to be a massive impact in terms of how the cash is coming in, it can be enough to kind of, take the business out, but also, the business owners, the stress levels are going to go
absolutely
through the roof.
The last thing I want to add about that, speaking to that stress level, is that it's highly, highly, highly common that a business owner doesn't have anybody inside their business that they can talk to about those concerns. And a fractional CFO can be that person. So, most business owners, even if they have an executive team, only share so much financial, and of course they should, right? Like, it's highly confidential information, but your fractional CFO is going to see all of that. And I can assure you has probably seen much worse and really has a whole litany of context for helping you look at it differently. And that's something that you probably don't have inside your company already. It's just, it's not common at all.
And it's that piece of, I always talk about, staying in your zone of genius.
Yeah.
And I feel like, many business owners being their own CFO is not going to be their own zone of genius.
No, not even if you're very well versed in finance. Because nobody else can be the CEO.
Yes,
probably.
Exactly. Yeah. This is so huge. I think there's just so much in here for people to get their head around. And I loved what you were saying. I've probably seen it all. I feel like you've just given everyone permission to kind of go, oh, I can air my dirty laundry with a CFO.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, being able to recognize that, everybody's business, the finance is going to look different, and having someone's expert eye to be able to actually, it feels like it's like a different language, to be able to understand this new language so that you can become fluent in it moving forward and make those solid decisions that you were talking about that are going to mean that the business is going to thrive and not survive. It's going to actually be able to grow in a profitable way moving forward. Oh, there's so much here, Jennifer. What would you say, if you're kind of reflecting back on our conversation, you might have covered this already, but just thinking about some of the things we've talked about, what are the top 3 tips that you would share with other entrepreneurs in business?
So I think I'm going to couch this as the first one is don't overreact, and that goes every direction, right? So earlier we said don't panic. I'm also going to say don't overreact. And my example here would be, let's say that you actually have a competitor that goes out of business and you're like, oh my gosh, look, we could get all of those customers, or we're going to help all those customers because they got left in dire straits by that other company. And that's great. But it's also what you might call the Shark Tank effect these days. I used to call it the Oprah effect, but the Shark Tank effect, right? Which is that now you have so much that your business just can't handle it. So you always want to have an element of not overreacting. Don't panic. Don't overexpand. Don't overreact. So that would be the first thing that I would say. The second thing that I would say is that really make sure that if you have some, let's call them bad habits, wherever those may exist in your business, that you really identify those and get focused on having that discernment, right? So that's something that we talked about earlier related to all of the noise. But discernment can happen at any point in your business. So if you have employees or contractors or whatever that just want to bring stuff in and blast it at you or dump it on your desk or whatever it is, like, there's discernment that you can apply in that situation, just like you can apply discernment to the information you're taking in from any outside source. And as a business owner, discernment is one of the biggest skill sets that you need to develop to protect your energy, right? Like you've only got so many kilowatts to burn in a day. It's like being on a diet, you know, if you have to make 1,500 decisions before lunch, you're going to overeat the rest of the day. Like if you have to make 1,500 little decisions before lunch, you're either not going to be able to make the big decisions later, or you're not going to make great business decisions later. So discernment really kind of helps you filter what needs to get into your space and what needs to not. And then the third thing that I would say is that really looking at the zone of genius that you mentioned, right? So as a business owner, it's looking at what are only the jobs that I can do. What is my zone of genius as it relates to my business? And then who are the other experts or advisors or staff that I need to make sure that I have on my team, and how am I going to utilize them? Right. So going back to our fractional CFO example, you may want to have a fractional CFO that you can really trust, but you want to develop a relationship with them that is project-based. Like there are plenty of fractional CFOs that do that type of work. Then there are fractional CFOs who are only going to work with you on a monthly retainer basis, and they're going to require a 12-month engagement. And then there's the whole spectrum in between, on top of which there's a lot of fractional CFOs that will specialize exactly in your kind of business and can give you a lot of insights because they're out there in the industry. They know what's happening otherwise. So you have a lot of opportunity, you know, that's just one of those expert advisory positions. And the same thing can be said about a lot of other things, right? Whether that's, if you're in the retail space, you might have a retail consultant. If you have a lot of contracts or things that require an attorney, the same kind of thing might apply. So, you know, really thinking maybe a little bit creatively about how you can have a bench of those people without feeling like you need to go hire them full time. And then like, that's probably not a good business decision.
That's so helpful, I think, I loved how you're saying having them on the bench. So you can like call on them when you need them, like you're up now.
You're up now.
Yeah. And then thank you very much. We'll come back when we've got the next project, and being able to get the right people, the right eyeballs on the piece of whatever it is, the project, you know, that you're growing at that moment in time. Yeah, that's just such sound advice. And so helpful, I think, because I think you've busted that myth around that person has to be like a full-time employee or right. You know, whatever, you know, the misconceptions that we can have that you can really, from what you were saying, is have it how you want it, because there's people that they're offering different ways to work with you, and being able to get that advice. I just think it's so key to be able to get the right advice so you can make those, you know, decisions from a place of discernment and having all the information that you need, rather than being big gaps in the information.
Yeah.
That can cause so much, you know, making the wrong decisions and then so much stress. This is so helpful. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I know our listeners are going to be absolutely loving this and going to want to look you up. How can they find you? What's the best thing for people to do?
So you can certainly find me on our website, which is Peak Advisory, PEEK, advisory.com. Also, social media wise, the best place is probably LinkedIn. And it's just Jennifer J. Peak, I think, is my LinkedIn username. Is that what they call it? whatever that thing is that shows up in the URL, right? I mean, it is Jennifer Peak, but I had to put a middle initial in there. So LinkedIn is also great. I do have Instagram. I'm not over there as much. So the first two are probably the best ways to find me and to get in touch. And you can book a call, an intro call from either place. Just get on my calendar, and like, if you want to figure out, do I need a fractional CFO? Do I need a bookkeeper? Happy to have a chat.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. That's so generous of you. And we'll put the links in the show notes as well, so people can find you easily. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom with us this week. I know that it's going to be super helpful for people as they're thinking about their projects moving forward and how they can grow profitably and how to keep focused on the lane that they're in and not get distracted by all the noise that's going on.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everybody who's been listening in. We would love to hear your thoughts and insights. You're very welcome to come and join us in the Money Kinesiology for 6 and 7 Figure CEOs on Facebook and carry on the conversation with us there. Share your thoughts on our conversation there. And until our next episode, we are sending you lots and lots of love. Namaste. Thanks for listening to the Infinite Prosperity Podcast. And if you like what you've heard and want to know more, please go to louisahavers.com. We just appreciate you so much. So thank you for listening and hanging out with us. If there's anything that we can do for you, you can email us at louisa@louisahavers.com. Let my team know if you have any ideas for shows that you'd love to hear or topics you want me to talk about. Really looking forward to hearing from you. All right, that is it for this week, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today. Looking forward to connecting with you again. Until next time, namaste.